Brian Tyler Cohen recently had a great deal of fun at the expense of Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump after those two made it clear that A, they were not on the same page, and B, they still need each other. It's an awkward situation, and it's hilarious to watch. Let's have a chuckle at it together.
Today we're going to talk about Tucker Carlson's secret text being exposed and what he's doing to pander to Trump as a result. And I interview Media Matters CEO Angelo Carlson about the company's complaint against Fox with the FEC and a campaign to prevent Fox from being able to charge sky-high carriage fees that fund their network. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie.
Yeah, I do want to say that, I apologize for the epilepsy. I do want to say that interview is great. We're going to watch some of it for sure.
And sent some pretty revealing text messages about Trump in the aftermath of the whole stolen election saga. He said, quote, "We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. I hate him passionately. I can't handle much more of this." And so those texts were...
Everybody hold up. Yeah, folks, if you know anyone who still watches Tucker Carlson and is a big fan of Trump, make sure they see that. Make sure they are at least aware of what their main source of information thinks about the guy they worship so. It's important at least that they be aware of that much, because the doubt needs to start creeping in. That is a crack by which it can begin to creep in. Tucker Carlson, not a fan of Trump. And yet, so many of the people that watch him basically worship Donald Trump. That is a dichotomy which needs to be addressed.
I hate him passionately. I can't handle much more of this. And so those texts were revealed, which was damning for both Tucker and Trump unto itself. But it's what happened next that I think is pretty telling, because now, coinciding with the release of those texts, suddenly Tucker's been going all in on this effort to rewrite the history of January 6th in what is like the most transparent and unconvincing way possible. So Tucker's claim here is that January 6th wasn't an insurrection. Here's a quick clip.
But the tape that we reviewed from within the building on that day proves it was neither an insurrection nor deadly.
And so his position is that it wasn't an insurrection because what the January 6th committee...
I'm sorry, how can he say it proves it wasn't deadly when there were deaths as a direct result of it? That's insane.
Didn't show you was all of the instances where the insurrectionists weren't destroying the Capitol. And I feel like I'm living on a different planet. Showing video of when someone isn't trying to hang the vice president doesn't invalidate the video where someone is trying to hang the vice president. They don't cancel each other out. Like, if you killed your family, and sorry to be morbid, but bear with me on this one. If you killed your family and it was caught on video and then you went to trial and you were like, Your Honor, here's video of me with my family from a vacation where I'm not killing them, what do you think the judge would say? Okay, you're right, case dismissed? Like, you showing evidence of you not committing a crime doesn't negate the evidence of you committing the crime, which is obvious, right? This is embarrassingly unconvincing by Tucker, which begs the question, why would Tucker do this? What's the point of an exercise that is so laughably weak? And there are two things that I can think of. First, because the right traffics in overt disinformation and normalizing political violence.
Let's see if he gets it.
Creating manufactured outrage. And so what does Tucker have to lose by trafficking in it some more? Like, it's insane, so everyone will talk about it, and in the attention economy, that's worth a lot.
Number one, I still recommend watching Brian Tyler Cohen because he's just fantastic. But number two, we disagree about why they're doing this. Let me toss in my 2 cents after he lists both his thoughts here.
Also, beyond that, there are people who think that he's telling the truth. Like, was January 6th a normal tourist visit? Not a chance. Are there people who want to believe that it was? Of course. Does Tucker's show give them a permission structure to be able to believe it? Absolutely. But the second thing is that he was caught talking shit on Trump. And he said himself, based on the Dominion filing, quote, what he's good at is destroying things. He's the undisputed world champion of that. He could easily destroy us if we play it wrong. And so This is Tucker's penance. This is Tucker cowering at the feet of a guy who he himself admitted has the power to destroy him. And so he's promoting the very narrative that Trump's hinged his entire identity on, which is that the election was stolen and that January 6th was warranted because it was a righteous effort to rectify a massive fraud on the American people. And of course, that's all bullshit. Tucker knows it's bullshit. Trump knows it's bullshit. But that's the story that Trump is selling. And so because Tucker got caught, now he is helping Trump sell his story. And I'll tell you what, I don't think that you'll ever see Trump lash out at Tucker because Trump knows that he's got power over Tucker now, and he also knows that Tucker's being a good little foot soldier for him, and so as long as he does his bidding, Trump's got no reason to destroy him, even though he can.
Respectfully disagree. So why does Fox News do what they do? Why does MAGA go with the stories they go with? The ridiculous, easily provable lies. Been saying it for a while. It's important to recognize it for what it is. It's not in the hopes that their audience believes them. It's so that it all just seems too confusing to pay attention to. That's it. They don't really expect their audience to memorize all of the contradictory stories they're telling. They don't expect their audience to fully believe them. They just want to give their audience an excuse to not really believe the other people. There it is. They don't want them to think that Fox News is honest. They want their audience to believe that all media lies. That's why I really get annoyed when I hear people railing against the media without being specific. Because that's the goal of these folks. Yeah, I got a problem with corporate media, sure. I call it out individually when I see it. But when I say people go, media, you can't trust the media, I'm like, well, there's a win for Fox. That's the goal. You do have to be wary you have to be critical, yes, of every source of information you have, including your old pal Jake. You got to be critical of it. And you got to be wary of any source of media that doesn't welcome critique. But there is a massive difference between a propaganda outlet and something like MSNBC, which simply, MSNBC is in the pocket of big corporations. That doesn't mean everything they say is wrong. It just means you have to be aware of the fact that their bills are paid for by massive advertisers. You see somebody like me talking about Harry's Razors. You don't really have to worry that the Harry's Razors lobby is in here chopping up American bills, taking out provisions that they don't like. You're good. However, if you're watching MSNBC and on comes an advertisement for Paxa whatever, some medication that they tell you should ask your doctor about, as if you're going to know more than your doctor, as if your doctor hasn't researched all the medication you might need and recommends already according to whatever is best for your health, theoretically. You got to know that that's different. That's a whole nother level. But all of that is not the same as what Fox does. What Fox does is a beast all its own. They are a propaganda network, and they survive off of that. And they do get contributions directly from oligarchs who write laws for America. So what are they doing up there? What do I think Brian Tyler Cohen has missed about this? The actual goal, the wider goal. He's talking about in this specific instance, I appreciate what he's doing. I don't think he's entirely wrong, but I think he's missing the bigger danger here. The bigger danger is that the people who are watching Fox will come away from all that reporting thinking, this is too confusing to follow. The point is, all media lies, and we're right because we're conservative. That's what they're going to believe.
Trump's got leverage now, and he is perfectly content to use it. And just taking a step back here, it's
Give me that
amazing
interview.
how all of these power dynamics revolve around these politicians and media personalities, all the while the losers in all of this are their viewers and supporters. All of these people, from Tucker to Trump and everybody in between, are all just making devil's bargains left and right to protect themselves. But the people who get fucked in all of this are the suckers who trust them, who believe that they're being told the truth, when in reality,
I've never heard him curse.
the power brokers here, the gatekeepers,
And all right, well, as long as we're here, as long as we're getting demonetized, let's do it properly. That was the best. First of all, that is how I feel. So kudos. He looks how I feel. 2, that was the best use of the word fucked I've heard in a long time because it's accurate.
are just a bunch of millionaires and billionaires looking out for themselves and their own interests. With the irony being that their marks, their victims, will never know any better
Boom.
because the only people that they trust enough are the ones that are doing the lying in the first place.
Boom.
That's the tragic
Well
part
done.
in all of this. So just like Tucker promoted the January 6th truther stuff to protect his ratings and his profits, he's now doubling down to protect himself
Give me
from
that
Donald
interview.
Trump. At no point does what Tucker do serve anyone but Tucker. And yet, that's how the right-wing media ecosystem works, with the biggest losers in all of this being the people conned into trusting that network in the first place. And so with that said, here's a preview of my interview with Media Matters president Angelo Carusone. Now, Media Matters has filed a complaint against Fox with the FEC. So first, can you explain what happened here and also what you hope to accomplish with the FEC?
Sure. I mean, basically what happened is, according to the filings and Rupert Murdoch's own acknowledgments, during deposition, his own sort of validation, he said he did this thing. Basically, in the 2020 election, right before Election Day, so late October 2020, the Biden campaign bought a series of advertisements, of which some of them were on Fox, which meant that Fox had confidential advertising information. So the nature of the ads, maybe where they were being purchased, when they were being deployed. So it's about essentially ad strategy. And what Rupert Murdoch said he did is that he says that he took the advertisements and he shared it with Jared Kushner, who was not only Trump's son-in-law, but he was also a senior advisor to the Trump campaign. And we filed an FEC complaint because that's illegal. And it's pretty clear. It's not even up for debate. So the law is really obvious here. It says that corporations can give contributions to these campaigns. So that's the first thing. But it says that contributions are not just money, that a material thing of value also counts as a contribution. And then the third thing is they've determined over the years that advertising, information about advertising, and advertising strategy is considered a thing of value. So our FEC complaint lays out what Rupert Murdoch says he did, lays out what the FEC sort of law is, and it says that what the FEC needs to do is do their investigation and apply the maximum penalty that's allowable. And
Get him.
what do we hope to accomplish? Well, the incredible thing about this is that unless someone actually nudges the FCC for these types of actions, they don't really do it proactively.
Isn't it wild that that's the case? I remember the FCC back in the day being like an intense organization, constantly going after adult comedy shows that I enjoyed because they said the F word one too many times. I have a feeling there was plenty of busybodies back then ensuring that the FCC did that work. Boy, lefties ought to take a note from this right here and understand that leftists being vocal is going to be a big part of what fixes America. Leftists insisting upon the rules being followed when those rules not being followed hurts decency. For way too long, the pattern for lefties, the cultural pattern for lefties has been just be quiet and cast your one vote on election day, and don't worry so much about the primaries. We got to knock that off. We got to be loud. We got to get used to writing in to places. It's easier than it's ever been. It's as simple as doing an email. We have to be a political force. We got the numbers. It's time that we use them.
So we were getting the ball rolling. And I think what we're trying to accomplish is another small sliver of accountability. But big picture, the way I sort of see what's come out of the Dominion filings and all these Dominion revelations is that it doesn't just begin and end with the defamation about Dominion. I see this as sort of the beginning of a cascading series of consequences for Fox, for the Murdochs, and this is just another layer of that cascade.
What enforcement ability does the FEC have if Fox is found to have violated FEC law as the result of this complaint here? Like, what's the best case scenario for us in terms of what can happen to Fox?
So, I mean, big picture, it depends. What's incredible about this is that there's no clarity as to what the penalty could be, because what ends up happening is they do an investigation. We don't know how much information was shared. We know that Rupert Murdoch talked about sharing this advertisement, and the other piece of it is what was described as confidential debate information. And beyond that, what ends up happening is the FEC, they sort of unpacks this. They get a full scale of what was actually involved, how much information was shared, and then they do a second piece, which is to value it. So they say, how much, if you were to pay for this, would you spend? Would you spend millions? Would you spend a couple $1,000s? And then they essentially use that as their baseline to then assess the penalty. And they would do some multiplier depending on the value. What I would say is if you don't need to be a political scientist or a media expert to know that a few weeks before an election, a presidential election, having the inside scoop on what your opponent is going to run in their advertisements and when they're going to run them and how they're going to run them is awfully valuable. And so, the penalties could be significant. But I also think more important than that, and this is the part that I think really is worth keeping in mind here with all this Dominion stuff, is that everything here is so explosive. All the information we're hearing about the host, all this stuff, even with this illegal contribution thing, that's one sliver. This is only about, we only have a keyhole view into what Fox has been doing behind the scenes. We're only looking at what they did in relation to Dominion in the election. So what I would say is the FEC could, in theory, uncover so many other illegal contributions. And I think that's always been the case with Fox. The corruption is always much more deep once you start to peel back the layers.
To watch the full episode with Angelo, click the...
Just want to say, your old pal Jake is now subscribed to Terry Canfield. I think that's a great suggestion. I just looked at some of the videos she's talking about. That was a suggestion by... Everybody hold up. Sorry, I've had that song in my head for a while. Lawrence St. Laurent. Yeah, I'll give it a look. Some of those looked fantastic. I will absolutely let you know what I think. In regards to what we just heard about, let me go back a little bit, just a tiny little bit, to what the very last thing he said.
Sliver. This is only about, we only have a keyhole view into what Fox has been doing behind the scenes. We're only looking at what they did in relation to Dominion in the election. So what I would say is the FEC could, in theory, uncover so many other illegal contributions. And I think that's always been the case with Fox. The corruption is always much more deep once you start to peel back the layers.
To watch the full episode...
Yeah. It's the same thing I was saying about January 6th. It's the same thing I've been saying about every other crime that Donald Trump seems to have committed that we are aware of. We only it's bizarre how much we know as the public about this. It's bizarre how much illegal stuff we're aware of as the public on this. Imagine how much we are going to learn when a prosecutor insists on the truth. Similarly, look at how corrupt Fox has acted. We only know this because of a civil lawsuit. Imagine if a serious investigation was done. Can you fathom the outcry there would be if MSNBC had taken Trump campaign ads and given them to the Biden campaign before they aired? First of all, the Biden campaign, I don't think, would be corrupt enough to accept such information. But if that had happened, we would be flooded with demands for the Justice Department to get involved. We would be flooded with protests. We wouldn't hear the end of it. That is the reaction we should have regarding Fox and the Biden campaign ads. I hope sincerely that group is successful. I encourage you all certainly to praise them. I encourage you all to write in to the FCC and say, go get them. The hell are you doing? But most importantly, what you can do. Ask Fox watchers what they think of the behind the scenes texts. We need to drive a wedge between Fox viewers and the network. We cannot allow there to be a disinformation channel that just exists, and the only way to get rid of them, like on American TV, like it's a normal thing just to have disinformation pumped out constantly. We can't allow that anymore. What I would recommend you do, just ask Fox watchers. Now that we know that Carlson, Hannity, and Ingraham, I can't believe that's the correct way to say her name, but it is, didn't believe the Dominion conspiracies, do you think you should take them seriously? The Dominion conspiracies, do you think you should take those seriously? Fox, do you think you should take them seriously? You can even recommend to them CNN. They've been making a poll for that old school Fox audience, that let's just believe the GOP no matter what they say Fox audience, not necessarily MAGA. Just ask them that. Just get the conversation started, because right now we are still in a place where Fox cannot talk about the Dominion suit. They can't refute the things they had to say. And by the way, even if they were given that opportunity, it's going to be hard to refute the fact that those text messages exist and they said what they said. Drive that wedge. It's going to be useful.